Hello, my name's Colin Makinson, and I am the Assistant Director of Education for Curriculum here at the National World War II Museum in New Orleans. And we're here in the museum's Distance Learning Studio for the final Spring 2021 Family Innovation Studio. So all through 2020, through the pandemic, and through the spring of 2021, we've been holding family programming. We typically hold that right here at the museum in New Orleans. But just to be safe, we've been doing these virtually, so we're very happy you've tuned in and can join us today. If you were one of the 50 first registrants for this Innovation Studio, you received all the materials you'll need to do all of these activities in a box that was mailed out to you by the museum. Don't worry, if you were the 51st or 52nd registrant, all of these materials for all of these activities are very, very common as long as you have access to paper, crayons, colored pencils, tape, or glue. You'll be able to follow right along and you won't miss a beat. So all of our innovation studios that we hold have a unifying theme or kind of a principle that unites all of the activities. And the theme that unites all of our activities for this innovation studio is communication. Now, communication obviously today, very, very important. In World War II, 75, 80 years ago, very, very important as well. And why might that be? Well, you certainly don't want the bad guys, the enemies, listening in and finding out what you're communicating to your troops or to your leaders. They might know where you're going and might endanger the mission, might even cause you to lose the war. So we're going to be looking at some forms of communication, some very, very old, and then some much newer that were used by the Allies, the Americans, the British, the Soviets, and the French during World War II 75, 80 years ago. And we're going to do that through looking at them through some fun hands-on activities. And you can follow right along, and we'll get right to it. So we're going to start off by looking at a form of communication that's much older than 75 or 80 years old. This form of communication has been in use and continues to still be in use to this day. It's been used by the Navy, people operating on ships and boats offshore since the 1700s. If you think about it, that's around the time of the American Revolution, the French Revolution, back sort of dating to the founding of our country. And they communicated, we didn't have cell phones or even walkie-talkies, or this even predated the telegraph. So they communicated by using these. And this thing that I'm holding in my hand is called a signal flag, formerly an international maritime signal flag. And just like we use the different letters of the alphabet to communicate, these flags form their own alphabet in international maritime signal flags. So each flag like this can represent a character in the alphabet. There are even some special flags that represent very, very short messages to be communicated very, very fast. So typically these are hoisted aloft, that is very, very up to the very top part of a ship towards its mast back in the 17 and 1800s, and way in front of its bridge or conning tower for today's modern Navy. So each of these you can think of represents a character or a message or a letter in the alphabet, and we're going to see some of the things that you can do using these signal flags if you wanted to send a message, but also just something fun as well. So let's take a look at what we can do. So just as I said, each flag in the International Maritime Signal Flag code, all of them can represent different things, and this will be attached to the YouTube video once this recording is uploaded to the museum's YouTube channel, so you can check back here for reference, or you can even print them out. So you'll see we have A through Z, and we see that each of these flags takes a little bit different shape. We see different colors. We see like A and B, there's a little bite or dovetail almost taken out of it. And we can see different colors and shapes as well. So A through Z by using these signal flags, you could send a message. You could send it very quickly, and more importantly, you could send it silently. So during World War II, there would be no one listening in to your radio or telegraph communications. So you could send a message silently to another ship, and a flag on the top of a ship can be seen for very, very long ways. Also, you could send a message to forces on land or even planes flying high above. So to perform this activity, you'll have your International Maritime Signal Flag chart. You'll also have a template that you will use to spell out a message, and you can cut that out and it will look like this. Just some squares, just a place you can make your mark. And you can use this template to write a secret message, write a message to a friend or buddy, write a secret message you don't want mom or dad decoding. But one of the things that I always do when I'm first teaching signal flag alphabet to new users is spell out something simple. And one of the simple things I like to spell out is spelling out your name. So I have my Maritime Signal Flag alphabet sheet, and my name is Colin. So there's a C, I need an O, I need two L's, I need an I, and I need an N. So C-O-L-L-I-N. Think about your name. You can do your first, you can do your last thing, you can do both. And start thinking of how you would spell it out. You might need a lots of piece of paper, depending on how long your name is. Mine's luckily not too long. So once you've spelled it out, you can use one of these squares and color it in and make your own version of a signal flag. Again, all you need is a piece of paper, some crayons, or colored pencils. So I'm going to move this aside. We'll see if we can zoom in or see if we can see what my name in signal flags looks like. And I'll get them all spread out. So again, sending messages quietly, sending messages silently, and sending messages secretly. Now, for people who may not watch this video, or people who are not in the know about signal flags, they might see this and say, what is that? Is that a checkerboard and a sun, or what does this mean? But we know from looking at my code earlier, we know we have a C, we have our O, we have our two L's, we have our I, and we have our N. Very, very simple, but again, if your mom, dad, or your buddy, or your teacher doesn't have our International Maritime Signal Flag, they won't know what you're trying to message. Try it out and have fun doing so. So, looking at technology from the 1700s that was still in use by the time of World War II and still in use today, let's fast forward about 100 years. So we're now in the mid to late 1800s. And we're going to look at another form of communication that was quick, effective, and silent. And we're going to be looking at a different type of flag that also has its own alphabet. Again, you'll have one set of flags to help you send a message, and once you learn this one, you'll have two ways that you can send messages to your friends, classmates, buddies, or neighbors. And we're going to be sending messages this time using these. And these are called Semaphore Flags. Semaphore is from the Greek. It means signal or sign bearer, semaphora. And these were used in the late 1800s to send messages on ships. And unlike our signal flags where they would hoist a flag up and the flags would spell out a message, or the characters would spell out a word, these had to do with the way the users would position themselves and position their bodies. If you've ever seen a plane land on an aircraft carrier, or if you've ever taken off in an airplane and you've had a window seat and you see a gentleman or a lady on the tarmac down below gesturing like this or like that and giving you one of these or one of those, they are using a form of communication based on the Semaphore Flag system. And these are really, really, really simple to make, but they're also fun. And again, another great way you can use communication for fun, but also learn about communication styles that existed in World War II. So let's take a check out our table and see how we're going to do that. So just like our signal flag alphabet, we had a single flag representing a character. Here in our semaphore alphabet, you see these type of flags, just yellow and red. But we see it's not the flags themselves that represent a letter, it's the way that you gesture, the way that you hold the flags above you with one below you, one out to your left, one to your right, one above, one held by your side. So each of these gestures would form a letter or character. And the person holding the flags would make their gestures very, very fast in the case of people in the military, because they want to send messages very, very quickly. And someone on the other end with a pair of binoculars or something like that, or another viewing device, would quickly take down the message that the semaphore signaler was attempting to transmit. And again, a lot of these gestures and a lot of these positions look very, very similar. I mean, look at K and L. Look at P and Q. If you're not really practiced in your semaphore positioning and gesturing, you might be sending a message that's completely impossible to decipher because you're sending something that's not really a word. And same thing with someone receiving a message. If they can't receive these signals and transcribe them quick enough, well, they'll be lost in translation as well. So what do we need to do this activity? All you need, and for the folks registering our first 50 registrants, you'll get all of these materials, but if you didn't register or you registered a bit late, you can still make some semaphore flags and learn about them. Our semaphore alphabet sheet will be uploaded as a downloadable template that you can download or print out. You don't really need to print it out. All you need, it really is there somewhere you can refer to it and see back to it. Some red and yellow construction paper. If you don't have red or yellow construction paper, you can take some white paper and just color it in red or yellow with some colored pencils or some crayons. What you're going to do with our red and yellow paper is you're going to assemble some flags that look like this. What I did is I just cut my red construction paper into 2 triangles and then I taped them onto the piece of yellow construction paper. You can also glue them as well, whatever is easiest. And then from there, all you need is something to mount them on. I grabbed just some dowels. You can use craft sticks if you want to make them smaller, really anything you have laying around until you have something that looks roughly like that. Again, why would this be useful during World War II? We're using stuff that's 100 years old. Why are we using a language style that originated in the 19th century? Well, you could send messages very, very fast. And again, the enemy can't listen in. They can't attempt to decode any or decrypt a message they might intercept by radio or telegraph. The only people who can intercept and transcribe the semaphore alphabet are people who can visually see the person transmitting them. And these were used primarily on the water by the Navy, but they were used on land as well. If someone was on a very, very high position, like on a hill or a mountaintop, they could send signal down below and have signals sent back to them as well. Again, a fun way to send messages, but something that has a lot of historical value and historical relevance to World War II. So communication in World War II, just like in the military today, or even in businesses or your school life or work life, very, very important. You want to make sure that messages and communications are only going to the recipients that you want them to read. You don't want someone hacking or phishing their way into your information and having access to your sensitive data. You want to make sure things are as secure as possible. And in World War II, that was really a race between the Allies, the Americans, the British, the Soviet Union, and the French against the Axis, Italy, Germany, and Japan. Each of these countries had massive amounts of time and money and people working on new codes. And just as we had people trying to develop codes, we had just as many people trying to crack them or decrypt them so that people on the other side could read them. So by the time of World War II, no one is sending open communications. Everyone has sensitive orders for attacks or retreats or strategies to win the war. They're sending them in codes. Very, very, very tough codes that are very hard to crack. The Germans on the Axis, one of the main foes that the United States was fighting against in World War II, had a very, very sophisticated code and a very sophisticated machine that generated that code. It was called the Enigma Machine. Enigma is just a term meaning something that's kind of like a mystery, something that's hard to decipher, something that's hard to understand. You see it's a term used in literature and mythology a lot. So they had this machine called the Enigma Machine, and it would generate a code that would change every 24 hours. So a code that you can work around the clock trying to crack it, and if you're too late, all your work is for nothing. And the real genius behind the Enigma Machine was it was a machine that consisted of rotors. A rotor is just like a wheel. And these wheels would spin, and every 24 hours there would be a new key set, a new key to unlock these transmissions. And that was sent from Germany to anyone who was operating an Enigma machine. So before the Allies captured some of these Enigma machines, very luckily, cracking the code proved almost impossible. But again, cracking that code definitely helped save thousands of Allied lives and probably greatly shortened the war. So we're going to look at a simple version of a cryptological machine, even though it is made out of just a paper. And we're going to look at how you can select a key and again send a message that no one else can decipher. Let's take a look. So for this activity, again, all you'll need, if you did not receive these materials, is paper and some scissors to cut them out. You will receive on a paper template 3 circles, one big one, one medium, and one small one. And we'll give you instructions to cut them out and then overlay them on top of each other like so. Then, using either a brad, that's like something you might see to seal up like an envelope. If you've got your parents around, maybe what they're used to seeing in an inter-office envelope, something like that. If you don't have one of those, you can use a push pin or a thumbtack. And what you are going to do is you are going to, again, lay all of those circles on top of each other. And then you are going to secure them in place using that brad or that thumbtack. And you're going to have something that looks like this. And this is a very, very primitive coding machine. And the way it works is you see that the circles inside and in the extreme interior, they spin. So you can select a key, a number, and that number will equal a letter. And then you will have that correspond to a letter on the outside. So you can set a very, very easy substitution key where we'll say, in our code, H equals N and I equals O. Or if you want to make it even more complicated, you can select a number that will be the key to unlock your code. Again, something to have fun with. But again, you can relate it back to World War II history and some of the cryptological code-breaking efforts that were so important 75, 80 years ago. And just like today, where we want to make sure that our messages stay safe and that no one's getting at our data. So I hope you've enjoyed looking at some of the ways that people communicated 75, 80 years ago during World War II. We learned about maritime signal flags, made some semaphore flags we used to send semaphore signals, and we made a cool and very primitive cryptological machine that you can use to send messages. Again, you have to know the key in order to send these messages. You have to know the alphabet or the signal flag positions in order to be able to transmit a message. So play this back if you need further examples or to practice. You also have those sheets and templates to use as reference. Again, communication, very, very important today, very, very important 75, 80 years ago in World War II. We hope you enjoy these activities. If you do, if you took pictures or have feedback for us for future programs, tag us, tag the museum. We're on pretty much every social media platform that's out there. We love to see pictures of families interacting and using some of these resources. But again, let us know what you want us to see in the future. We're always looking for good ideas, and maybe you might have the next great idea. So on behalf of the National World War II Museum, my name again is Colin Makehamson, and we thank you so much for hanging out and innovating with us. Have a great day.